Hello and welcome. My name is Kathleen Ruddy. I'm the CEO of the St. Baldrick's Foundation. And thanks to you, I have the best job in the world because I get to work with Heroes for Kids with Cancer every day. Today, you'll meet Michael Gary from Sherman, Texas. Michael is a remarkable young man who's a teen cancer fighter and survivor, and he's also hard at work helping other kids with cancer also. Michael doesn't let cancer define him, and I think his story will be a real inspiration to you. Michael, welcome.
Hey.
We're so glad to have you, Michael. So you were diagnosed with osteosarcoma in December of 2017, and you were only 12 at the time. Now, that means you're 16 today. You've been fighting cancer for a fourth of your life. Before we learn more about your journey, tell our audience, if you will, a little bit about the disease that you're fighting, osteosarcoma.
Right. So osteosarcoma is a malignant bone tumor. So it's actually the most common of the bone tumors that show up in, I think, teenagers. But overall, it's not very common, especially in adults. So we were also told that the next place it would have traveled was my lungs. So that's really the most I know about it. But it's enough to be scary.
For sure. What symptoms led to your diagnosis, Michael?
Well, I started having pain when I was walking, and it was on my fibula and my right leg. So that spot on my leg started swelling up a lot, and it was really warm, and it hurt to the touch. And so we went to see a doctor about it.
Yeah, those would be clear indications something's not right. But when you heard the words "you have cancer," that probably blew your mind. What did go through your mind at that point?
The first time, in all honesty, when I was told, at least, I thought, yay, I get to beat it. That changed very quickly. The first chemotherapy round, I was not very happy. I was like, never mind. I don't like this at all. So I'd heard a lot about cancer, but I'd never really, I didn't really know what it took. And so it didn't hit me as hard as it should have until I actually started treatment.
Maybe that's a good thing because, you once you're into it, you just got to keep going, and it probably helps you take the next step if on some level. So you've had surgeries, chemotherapy, lots of rehab and physical therapy, and probably a lot of other procedures, and along with meds along the way. You're a young person. Nobody would blame you if you felt angry or discouraged at times. And yet, when I've read things that you've written, you're very positive. What's your secret to coping with all the challenges that come with cancer treatment?
Right. So my secret is my faith, which I would love for it to not be a secret, actually. Yeah. It plays a huge role because I believe in Jesus Christ, who gives eternal joy even in the darkest times, right? So like the Bible says that Paul, for example, was in prison, right? And they were beaten and everything, and they still rejoiced. And so I'm just following that, even though I have a great trial ahead and a lot of pain and not a lot of fun. I am still praising my God because I know He is good and He is using this to grow me in Him.
Well, and I would imagine it's incredibly reassuring to know you have the ultimate ally on your side.
Absolutely, yes.
So when you were able to return to school after your earlier treatments, what did you most look forward to doing again?
Mainly seeing my friends, because when you take chemotherapy, it destroys your immune system. So you can't really be around other people because even like the smallest infection or anything can even kill you if you're not treated right. And so they're very careful about that. You're supposed to stay at home, and you can maybe have one visitor between hospital visits, and that's it.
If you had said that before the pandemic, people might say, yeah, but now people can really relate to it more because everybody's lived or had some experience of living more in seclusion and having to be fearful and concerned about who they're coming into contact with. So while it's not exactly the same, we all can appreciate a little bit better what it must be like to live as a cancer patient must, or any immune compromised patient must. Have your friends remarked on that to you, that they kind of get a little more of like what it is to live as you have to?
Well, the time that my friends were mostly stuck inside, I didn't have cancer. I had a recurrence this year, which is sort of when it kind of went away. Also, I live in a small town in Texas, and honestly, a lot of my friends didn't really stay home that much. So they maybe did not get exactly that, but I think in their mind they certainly had a taste. They probably weren't thinking about it really, because when they were staying at home, I didn't have it.
Mm-hmm. To everybody in our audience, if you're just joining us, we're visiting with Michael Gary, a 16-year-old cancer fighter and survivor from Sherman, Texas. So Michael, back to you. As you just mentioned, in January of this year, you learned you had relapsed. Do you want to tell everybody what followed?
Well, so I had gone to a routine appointment with my orthopedic surgeon, and it really, I was still supposed to be clear, but I got an X-ray and it showed this mass on my leg, and so I had to get a biopsy done, and we figured out it was malignant. I was going into the farther out you are from being clear of it or being in remission, you have your appointments spaced out farther. And so I was going in, it was 6 months from my last appointment, and this was just a normal oncology appointment. But instead of going in and being like, yeah, I'm fine, 6 months since the last appointment, I was like, yeah, it's back. And this time, instead of just thinking, yay, I can beat it, I thought of a Bible verse. Again, this goes back to the Bible because all of my feelings throughout this are entirely rooted in that. And I don't think I would make it through it any other way. So I thought of this Bible verse. It's in James. It says, count it all joy when you encounter trials of various kinds, for it produces steadfastness in the Lord. So basically, I kept saying that in my head, and that's what I would go through. It would get me all throughout this entire treatment and the surgeries that followed it. And even now, still, I'm having, some difficulties adjusting. I'm not the same as everybody else anymore, but I can still get through that because I know that all of this hardship makes me trust in God more.
That's a weight that you carried, or that was placed upon you at that time, but it sounds like you created a very good, effective strategy for yourself to prepare you and to help carry you through this extensive treatment plan and surgery that you had this year. What has your recovery process entailed? I know after your amputation, you had a lot of physical therapy and other things, and you want to share a little bit about that?
Right. So I've always had physical therapy or occupational therapy of some kind. I've always had some like really tight muscles and everything. So I'd kind of had some experience with it, right? I'd already been like 5 different times to different clinics and everything and seen a bunch of doctors, but this had just made it even harder. It just sort of added even more. So it was all the problems I had before plus some. The first surgery I got, I had part of a nerve removed, and so I had drop foot. Basically, you can't do anything with your foot really. It just sort of is limp. And so I sort of had to relearn how to walk with that. And then afterwards, I had my leg amputated, and that's the same leg. And so now I have to relearn how to walk with a prosthetic and everything.
So your faith was a big sustenance to you and support to you in this. How do you think this year weighed on your family and your friends, who probably were very worried and concerned for you and wanted to be a support to you? How do you think they stepped up and processed all that was going on with you?
Well, the very first time I was diagnosed with cancer, I think my friends thought it was a joke because
Mm.
I was headed back to school. I had just gotten checked out and everything, and I sent it in a group chat. I was gonna tell everybody, but I wanted to tell a couple friends first, and this one friend just shared it with everybody, and they're like, "No, he doesn't." So I was like, "Okay." And then they were like, "Oh, he does." And once they did that, the school I went to at the time, they made shirts for me, they made bracelets for me. It was really awesome. They have a uniform, and they had a certain day where you could take a break from wearing that uniform to wear that shirt. It was really awesome. They supported me so much. Obviously, as parents, it's pretty hard to figure out that your child has cancer, but they're also rooted in Christ, just as I am. I have very godly parents, and so they leaned pretty heavily on that as well. And a lot of my friends believe too. So they all brought me gifts and everything, and they prayed for me, which I believe certainly helped.
Absolutely. So, despite the curve that you were thrown this year, because I'm pretty sure this isn't how you plan to spend your year, your summer, especially, um, what I understand is that you kind of looked at your surgery and the recovery as just part of your summer plans and just a couple of the things that you had to do this summer, but you had some other big priorities for yourself. So tell us what else you're up to this summer.
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly a busy summer between, oncology, amputation appointments, and having to fix my driving, right? Driving rehab and this, of course. But I also have some church camp planned, hanging out with friends. Percussion camp was actually today. I just got back from it. And, we just got to practice music and everything and be prepared for when the school year starts. Uh, and then hang out with friends, really anything, but as much time as I can fill with that, I love to.
I'm glad you could squeeze us in because you've got quite a social and a big schedule this summer. Um, do you think
Yeah,
cancer?
I think today I think is the busiest day I have had all
Oh,
year. I've got percussion camp and then this camp and then church camp.
well, that's always the way
So
it works. You know, the busiest days have more added to them. This is just a good preparation for the rest of your life. Um, Michael, do
right.
you think cancer has changed the way other people relate to you or see you or treat you?
It certainly has. During the year I had cancer, obviously, uh, that changed how people treated me drastically. Although once I sort of recovered from it, I got into that remission period. It just sort of left the minds of a lot of my friends, right? Because at that point, I still had two legs, so I was
Mhm.
still, doing activities fairly normally. I was not the same. I was missing a nerve. It was kind of hard. I was never a physical person in the first place, though, so uh, a lot of things sort of just stayed the same, actually. But certainly at church, a lot of people have viewed this as, well, bro, your testimony has improved significantly. You can really point this towards God and Christ and what He's done for you. And I fully agree with that. I was like, yeah, absolutely.
So others have seen the way that cancer has kind of reframed not only your faith, but maybe the way you approach life and tap your faith to approach your life. And it sounds like maybe it's changed the way you see yourself.
Yeah. Well, first off, when I see myself, I don't see one of my legs and I don't see hair, for one thing. But then also, yeah, in terms of spiritual growth, I was sort of an immature Christian at first, but having this trial, again, count it all joy, for it produces steadfastness in the Lord. So what it does is it grows you, it helps you rely on Him more. A lot of people think it's just a one time and done thing. I can just, live a sinful life. But this has really grown me, and it's made me want to study Him more because I really understand what it's like to rely on Him.
That's that's beautiful. So you mentioned you don't have hair at the moment. You have shaved your head twice for St. Baldrick's. This year, I know you raised over $7,600, which is amazing. Um, can you share with us why it was important for you to do that for other kids fighting cancer?
Yeah. I think I shaved my head 3 times,
Oh,
although
three
I don't
times.
know whether or not you count this year. I shaved it
Oh, we should
willingly
count this year.
twice, and then this year I made a video for it, and I still had all the donations coming into St. Baldrick's and everything, but it was coming out anyway, so I don't know if you count that or not.
I think we
Two,
should count it.
two, 2.5. Anyways, yeah, it was. I think a year after I was in remission, we learned out that we learned that Austin College, right, was partnering with St. Baldrick's and everything, and they had for a while, I think. And so we were like, hey, we got to do this. When I was in the hospital, actually, uh, first patients or new patients, sorry, they get this packet thing. I've gotten it twice now because I've had it twice, but it sort of goes through, what you can expect from treatment and, you know, things that the hospital may provide, different resources, stuff like that. And on the very front of it, it says paid for by St. Baldrick's. And I thought that was really cool. I've also talked to my doctors, and St. Baldrick's funds research that my clinic does. And so I can actually see the benefit of giving money to an organization like this because they actually have done things in my life that I have seen. And I know plenty of other people who go to the same doctors, go to the same hospital, and I know that they at least would be benefiting from this as well, not to mention all of the other places that receive funding and whatnot. Texas Oncology at Medical City, Dallas, is where I go. They have this camp for cancer patients that go to them and their siblings. So I've really gotten to know a lot of the people that do go to that doctor, and some of them are clear, they're in remission, they have been for a while, but some of them are still undergoing treatment, or they went and then now they're back in treatment like me. And I know that if there's any way that I can benefit those people, for sure, because I know them personally now, I absolutely would, and that's why it's such a big deal.
So, what would you tell others who are maybe thinking about shaving, maybe a little bit worried about doing it, not sure if it's going to grow back the same, um, or who are thinking about doing something else to help kids with cancer? What would you say on behalf of all kids with cancer to that person who might be listening now and is a little bit on the fence?
Well, first off, your hair grows back, and it grows back very quickly. If you're just shaving it optionally, your hair grows back very quickly. Mine takes a little longer the second time, just because it's chemicals that made it fall out, not a razor, I guess.
Mhm.
But I found it comes back quickly. It's not usually too much to worry about. I think the biggest fear is mostly in girls who have long hair, but I have seen grown girls and younger girls shave their heads optionally for it, and they've given wigs and they've raised lots of money. They raised actually the most money at the last in-person event I was at. It was a girl who had long hair, and certainly seeing things like that, encourages others to do it. For a guy, it's usually not so big of a deal. They can get a buzz cut, whatever. But I'd say for girls, it's a bigger deal. But it does grow back. I promise. That's the biggest thing. And of course, if you have maybe a sibling or somebody close to you, like my friends have experienced, right? It'll make you want to more. Although that said, I have had trouble convincing my friends. Only got a couple.
And and for kids with cancer, what does it mean to you and your fellow patients to know that there are people out here, whether they're shaving or they're running a marathon or doing a cycling race or whatever it is that they're doing to help provide better research for kids like you? What would you say to them?
Uh, Honestly, keep up the good work. Right now, I'm sort of in remission. I'm on an oral maintenance drug, and so I'm mostly off of it, but I am still just a little bit on it. So even if it doesn't benefit me entirely, I love that it's benefiting all the other kids that have to go through this, and maybe they don't have the same faith as me, maybe they aren't as positive and they're having trouble. Certainly having that funding can improve their lives and their families' lives drastically. when we were in the hospital, we were given things like gift cards to gas stations. Gas is expensive now, and having to drive to a hospital is a lot of money. So, for any of those patients and their families, knowing that there are people that are supporting them in that fashion, people that are willing to, like you said, run a marathon. I could never. I can't even run right now. I'm working on it. That there's people willing to go that far, it certainly means a lot to them. I think my biggest one is prayer, which is free actually. But it really warms my heart to know that there's people who are raising money. I watched this one YouTube channel. They raised like $3 million for St. Jude's, and they made it entertaining. So that's a bonus.
Well, Michael, you've talked a lot about how cancer has changed you. At times you have hair, and at times you don't. When you started this, you had 2 legs. Now you have a prosthetic leg. I would say to you that, you've shown us today very bravely yourself. You took your hat off and you showed us what your bald head looks like. You're handsome regardless of your legs, regardless of whether or not you have hair, because you're a good person inside. And I read a blog that you wrote for St. Baldrick's, and you spoke of a time prior to your initial diagnosis when you were having trouble putting on weight and like getting stronger to be able to play sports and compete in sports. And I would say that physical strength is just one type of strength. And you've shown us today through your comments and your attitude that you have much greater strengths. Your faith, which creates that positive attitude and fuels your courage. I think you have a lot to teach us. And I thank you for sharing your strengths with us today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, the best I could say is for anybody who is a patient or is close to a patient who is undergoing cancer, there are so many people, number one, supporting you financially through organizations like this. And there's a lot of people praying for you. And I know that because I pray for you. And the way that I have gotten through this is through my faith. And I couldn't recommend anything better.
That's a powerful message to encourage everybody, whatever their burdens in life are. Thank you for that, Michael, for your wisdom and sharing it with us. And to our audience, thanks for listening. And please share Michael's message on your social networks so that others can benefit by it. And plan to join us again next month as we speak with 2 more young survivors. For now, thanks for helping give kids a lifetime.